All right, so get that they're diving deep into magic today. Remember that Witchcraft Q&A blog post you sent me?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to unpack it all right here, right now. History, modern takes, you name it. Oh, and a touch of ethics, too. Just, you wait. This isn't just about, like, waving wands and chanting spells or whatever.
It really isn't. We're talking about tapping into something much bigger. You know, something that connects us to the universe and ourselves in a really profound way.
Okay, so how does this blog post actually define magic, then? Like, what are we even talking about here?
It basically boils down to this: using your focused intention and your energy to create change in the world around you, often by working with natural elements. Think of it like a collaboration with the forces of nature, you know?
Interesting. Okay, so I've always wondered about this, though.
Okay.
Is magic something that's like, I don't know, manipulating energy? Or is it more of a spiritual connection? Or is it something else entirely?
Well, a lot of witches see themselves as co-creators, working with universal energy rather than just trying to control it. It's all about aligning your desires with the natural flow of energy, if that makes sense.
So the million-dollar question, right? Is magic even real? I mean, the blog seems to be saying yes, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, from a witch's perspective, magic is about aligning your intentions with the energy of the universe so you can manifest your desires. That doesn't always mean like instantaneous dramatic transformations, though. It's often more about subtle shifts, you know, and synchronicities that eventually lead you to your desired outcome.
You know what I find really interesting about all this? This whole concept of magic, it's existed in so many cultures and time periods, right? It's often tied to understanding the natural world, too, which I think is really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, just think about ancient healers using herbs for medicine. Or think about those rituals they used to invoke rain for their crops. I mean, were those early forms of, I don't know, medicine? Or were they early expressions of magic? The lines can get kind of blurry, you know?
Yeah, I get that. Now, the blog post brings up this whole white magic versus black magic thing, but then it goes on to say that a lot of witches reject these labels. Like, why is that?
Well, think of magic like electricity, right? It's a neutral force. It's the intention behind it that determines its effect. So the focus is shifting away from these simplistic labels and more towards understanding the responsibility that comes with wielding that kind of power, you know?
Yeah, so it's not about the tool itself, but about how you use it. Now, this blog post seems pretty clear that anyone can practice magic. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think witchcraft is a path of self-discovery and empowerment. It welcomes anyone who has a sincere desire to learn and practice responsibly. It transcends background or religion, you know what I mean?
I love that the blog post mentions different learning avenues like books, mentors, and even just connecting with nature. That's something everyone can do. Speaking of learning, let's talk about spells for a second. Like, what are they, really?
Okay, so spells are basically a way to ritualize your intention. You're focusing your energy toward a specific goal, right? They often involve tools and actions that are symbolic, but you got to remember the real power always comes from within.
Yeah, okay. The blog also mentions these grounding and cleansing techniques to prepare for spell work, right? What's the significance of that? Why do they do that?
Think of it this way. It's about clearing distractions. It's about making sure that your energy is pure and aligned with your intention, you know? You're creating a sacred space for your magical work, both internally and externally.
It's like setting the stage for some powerful magic to unfold.
Yeah.
Okay, now does someone have to believe in specific gods or deities to practice witchcraft? Like, is that a requirement?
Not necessarily. Some witches honor specific deities, it's true, but others practice what's called secular witchcraft. They're focusing on energy work and natural forces instead. It's a really personal choice, you know?
That's super interesting. It sounds like there's a lot of room for like individual expression within witchcraft, right? The blog mentions all kinds of tools, candles, crystals, herbs, wands. Are these things actually essential for practicing magic, though?
Well, these tools can definitely enhance your practice. There's no doubt about that. But the true magic lies in your intention and your energy. So don't get caught up thinking you need a fancy wand or rare herbs to connect with that power. You know what I mean?
So they're like amplifiers, not the source of the music.
Yeah.
What about tarot and oracle cards, then? I'm super curious about those.
Those are divination tools. They're used for introspection and guidance. You can think of them as a way to tap into your intuition and get a deeper understanding of yourself and the situation you're in.
Okay, let's get down to the nitty-gritty for a second. How do you actually cast a spell? What does that whole process look like?
First things first, you got to set a clear intention. What change are you looking for? After that, you gather your tools, if you're using them, and you prepare your space, both physically and mentally. The next step is to raise and direct your energy. often through visualization and incantation, and that's how you bring your intention to fruition.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And this is where those grounding and cleansing techniques come into play, right? To really hone that intention and energy that we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. It's like focusing a beam of light, right? The clearer your lens is, the stronger the beam will be. And that clarity comes from preparation and focus. Okay, now let's talk about something that I think a lot of people find intriguing: familiars. What exactly are we talking about when we say familiars?
I don't know why, but the image that always pops into my head is a witch's pet, like a black cat or a raven. Is that accurate? Is that what a familiar is?
Well, it's actually a bit more nuanced than that. You see, in folklore, familiars were often depicted as animal companions. But the modern interpretation is more about a deep connection to nature or to spirit.
Oh, okay. So it's less about a literal pet and more about like a spiritual bond. That makes you wonder what kind of familiar you'd connect with, I think mine would be a wise owl, but maybe I'm biased because I love owls. Anyway, speaking of making good choices, let's talk about the ethics of magic for a minute. What are the guidelines for practicing responsibly?
Well, the blog post emphasizes what's called the threefold law, which basically means that your actions have consequences. The energy you put out into the world is going to come back to you threefold, for better or worse. So the question becomes, what kind of energy do you want to send out into the universe?
That's definitely something to think about. It really makes you think twice about messing with the darker aspects of magic. You know what I mean? Anyway, it sounds like being mindful of your intentions is a key part of ethical magic. And on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have. But there's still so much more to explore in the world of magic. We'll be back in part 2 to delve a little deeper into these fascinating concepts. Welcome back to our deep dive into all things magic. When we left off, we were talking about the threefold law, right? And the importance of ethical magic.
Yeah, it really got me thinking, about those ripple effects our actions have, magical or not. There's something I've always been curious about, though. Curses and hexes, like, are those real? Do witches actually use those things?
Well, the blog post didn't get into those specific practices, but we can definitely look at them through the lens of ethical magic and the whole threefold law idea, right? Sending out negativity or harm, even if you have good intentions, can still have consequences that you didn't intend. And those consequences could even affect the person who sent it out.
Makes you think twice about messing with that darker magic stuff, right? Okay, the blog post also mentioned different types of magic. Can you tell me more about that? Like, what are some of the different types?
Oh yeah, definitely. So the blog doesn't categorize them or anything, but there are a bunch of different branches of magical practice out there. For example, there's what's called green magic.
Green magic, okay.
It's all about connecting with nature, working with plants, herbs, and the elements. It's a really beautiful way to deepen your relationship with the natural world.
That sounds really cool. So what are some other examples? Like, what else is there?
Well, there's kitchen witchery, which is basically infusing everyday cooking and homemaking with magical intention.
So it's not just about spells and rituals.
Right. It's about creating a sacred space in your home, and giving your daily activities more meaning and purpose, imbuing them with magic.
But it's like bringing magic into literally every part of your life.
Yeah.
Cool. What other branches are there?
There's cosmic magic, which is all about using the energy of celestial events like moon phases and planetary movements. And then there's divination, which we talked about earlier. That's where you use things like tarot cards to gain insight and connect with your intuition.
Wow, it's amazing how many different ways there are to connect with magic, right? I've always wondered about something, though. Astral projection. Have you ever heard of that? What's the deal with that?
So the blog post doesn't mention astral projection specifically, but it's often described as a conscious out-of-body experience, Imagine separating your astral body or your energy body from your physical form.
So it's like your spirit going on an adventure while your body stays behind. Is that even possible?
It's a concept that a lot of spiritual traditions explore, and some people believe that it lets them travel to different dimensions, connect with other beings, and access really profound knowledge and insights.
Sounds like quite a journey. But I'm guessing it's not for beginners, right?
Well, like any practice that deals with exploring different states of consciousness, it's super important to approach astral projection with respect and preparation. Ideally, you'd have guidance from experienced practitioners.
Noted. Okay, let's talk about something a little more, down to earth. Crystals, they're everywhere these days. But what's their connection to magic, according to the blog post?
The post lists crystals as one of the tools that witches use. They're believed to hold and amplify energy. And different crystals have different properties and intentions associated with them, like amethyst, for example. That's often used for enhancing intuition and promoting peaceful energy, while rose quartz is all about love and compassion.
So they're like little energy powerhouses, like something you can use to boost your intentions and spells.
Yeah, you can think about it that way. They could be incorporated into rituals, carried with you, or used to create a specific energy in your space.
It's really interesting how something from nature can hold that kind of power. How do you know which crystal to use for which purpose, though? Like, is there a guide or something?
Oh, yeah, there are tons of resources out there, but a lot of it also comes down to intuition, feeling a connection to a particular crystal and trusting your inner guidance.
It's like each crystal has its own personality.
Hmm.
Now, I'm curious about chakras. The blog didn't talk about them, but I know they're a big deal in other spiritual practices. What are they exactly? And how do they relate to magic?
Okay, so chakras are basically energy centers that are located throughout your body. They govern our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. When they're balanced and flowing freely, we experience vitality and harmony.
Okay, but what happens if they get blocked or out of alignment?
That can manifest as physical or emotional imbalances. Witches and energy healers often work with chakras to promote healing and restore balance. They might use things like meditation, visualization, crystals, or energy healing.
It's like giving your energy system a tune-up. Okay, now what about dreams? Do dreams have anything to do with magical practice?
Oh, yeah, totally. Dreams are a super powerful portal to your subconscious mind. Some witches practice dream magic, which basically involves techniques for remembering your dreams, interpreting them, and even influencing them.
Wait, influencing your dreams? That sounds like something straight out of a movie. How does that even work?
Well, it's all about using the power of your subconscious mind. You can work through challenges, get insights, and even manifest your desires. There are techniques like setting intentions before you go to sleep, keeping a dream journal, or even practicing lucid dreaming.
That's so cool. It's like planting seeds in your subconscious garden and seeing what grows.
I love that analogy. Dreams
Okay.
are definitely a rich landscape for exploring and growing, both magically and personally.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive. It feels like we're just getting started, though, to be honest. Maybe we should take a break here and then continue our magical exploration in part 3.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Gives us a chance to reflect on everything we've talked about so far, and then we can come back refreshed and ready for more magic.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into magic. It's been quite the journey so far, right? I feel like we've been through ancient forests, starlit skies, and even, like, the depths of our own subconscious.
It really has been an adventure. We've explored all these different branches of magic, and all the tools and techniques. We even ventured into the realm of dreams.
But there's this one thing that I'm super curious about that the blog post didn't really touch on. Have you ever heard of, like, tech witches? I've seen some stuff online about them. They're like blending technology with magic, which sounds kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, it's actually a really fascinating intersection. It's where ancient wisdom meets modern innovation. Tech witches see a lot of power in technology. They realize that it's basically harnessing energy and information to create change.
So it's like magic, but with a digital twist.
Exactly. They might use things like coding to create digital sigils, for example, or they might incorporate algorithms into their spell work. Some even use social media to connect with other witches and amplify their intentions. It's all about embracing the tools of the modern world, and adapting them to their magical practice.
That's wild. It's like magic is evolving right alongside technology. Speaking of evolution, the blog post talked a little bit about the history of magic. But I kind of want to know more. Can you take us back in time for a minute?
Okay, so imagine a world where magic was just like part of everyday life. Think ancient Egypt, where priests and priestesses were doing all these rituals to honor the gods and make sure the harvest was plentiful. Or ancient Greece, with those oracles who were seeking guidance from the divine.
It's so cool to think about how those ancient practices might have, like, shaped the magic that we see today. What were some of the things they believed in back then, or some of their practices?
Well, a lot of ancient cultures believed in nature spirits, for example, and ancestor worship, and this idea that everything is connected. They used all sorts of things, herbs, rituals, incantations to heal, protect themselves, and connect with the unseen realms.
It's like this huge tapestry of beliefs and practices woven throughout history.
Yeah.
And speaking of connections, I've always wondered about covens. Are those a necessary part of practicing witchcraft? Like, do you have to be in a coven?
Covens are basically groups of witches who gather to practice together. They offer support, shared wisdom, and amplified energy, right? But a lot of witches choose to practice alone. They find empowerment and fulfillment in their own individual connection to the craft.
So it's really about finding what works for you,
Mm.
right? Whether it's the energy of a group or the solo journey.
Exactly. There's no one right way to practice magic. It's about honoring your own unique journey and tapping into that power within you.
This whole deep dive has been incredible, honestly. I feel like I've only scratched the surface of this like massive magical world.
And that's the beauty of it. There's always more to learn, more to experience, more to discover. Magic is all about curiosity, about exploring the unknown and tapping into our limitless potential.
It's a journey that just keeps unfolding,
Yeah.
with every step we take. So for everyone listening out there, keep exploring magic, read books, connect with others, trust your intuition, and most importantly, embrace the wonder and the enchantment that's within you and all around you.
The world is full of magic, waiting to be discovered. Keep your heart open, your mind curious, and your spirit ignited.
And until next time, may your journey be filled with magic and wonder.